So I know I spoke somewhat derogatorily in my previous outing, where we talked about how Season 6 would fail at the premise of the first few episodes. And I know what you're thinking. Well, when will we reach that point? At what point will we be at the failure point? Because, damn it, I only watch this show, or the lore runner, whatever it is you call me, because I specifically want to see how terrible Voyager is. Well, we're not there yet. This is a good episode, in my opinion. And it's kind of hard to explain why unless you've really seen the whole thing. And I do mean the whole thing. This is one of those episodes where if you see about a third of it, it doesn't really fit all that well. The first third is... So this episode is 3 flavors of fun, is what I like to think of this episode as. First third... Oh, hang on. Actually, before we go to that, let's talk a little bit about the behind-the-scenes stuff, because I only have a couple things to share. This is originally actually going to be a Neelix episode, believe it or not. They decided to shift this over to the Doctor, and frankly, I think that was a good move, for various reasons. This is the closest thing to a continuation of the Doctor's arc that we're going to get. He will have 2 or 3 more episodes in the future that will continue the overall arc of where the Doctor's character is going at this point in time. I will admit I think it's a mistake for him to go into that arc, but I do nevertheless think that the arc itself, ignoring the fact that I think the arc was a bad idea, but the arc's construction is actually well done in these 3 or so episodes. So what we see is a very fun episode that Robert Picardo absolutely loved, absolutely adored playing it. All the actors and actresses had a ball with this one. You remember the episode, whose name I don't remember right now, forgive me, with the fake Voyager and the evil, horrible, we are death, destructo, death to troopers kind of presentation. It's that kind of fun. The actors had a lot of fun just kind of stretching the roles and going with it. So in this episode, let's talk a little bit about those 3 types of fun. The first kind of fun is the ridiculous, silly fun I just referenced. The Doctor, it's so wonderfully, shamefacedly fanfiction-y. Like, everything that you usually associate with a negative when it comes to fanfiction, that's this thing, except it's done in such a lighthearted, silly style. The problem with most fanfiction that fails, in my opinion, is that they do the stuff the Doctor fanfiction, the Doctor daydreams were doing, but they do it as if they were being serious about it. As if there really is a character who, and I'm just going to glance at my notes here, sings a song so well, it launches a Vulcan into Pon farr, but it's okay, because he then immediately solves the problem. That is actually a Mary Sue, in a nutshell right there. And we've talked about this concept many times in this show, and especially on the Voyager sequences. But I mention this because it's okay in this case because they're not doing it seriously. They're not saying the Doctor is actually that amazing, like they had done previously with, say, Janeway. They are saying the Doctor thinks of himself as that amazing. The Doctor's own fanfiction, his own daydreams, portray him as that, which, A, makes perfect sense since the Doctor doesn't have a lot of creative experience yet, and, let's just be honest with ourselves here, basically all of us, when we started writing, that's what we wrote. There's a lot of self-insert fanfiction, and there's a lot of one character who's amazing. I shouldn't say fanfiction. Fiction. There's a lot of self-insert fiction, and there's a lot of self-insert... Or there's a lot of one character is amazing fiction. Whether it's fanfiction or not, whether it's a completely original work or not, doesn't matter. A lot of us, if not all of us, when we first started writing, we hit those same hurdles just like everyone else does. This is especially true since a lot of people, when they start writing when they're younger than 20. Just to give you one example of this. And I am no exception to this. I am absolutely no exception to this. Technically, several characters in the Imperium were originally self-insert characters. Now they're not. I've worked my way out of that. I've kind of made them so they're not self-insert characters anymore. And I've tried to flesh them out a little bit more. But you get the idea. We've all done this, right? And so we're not saying, oh, the Doctor's amazing. We're saying, oh, the Doctor is writing a story as if he was that amazing. Makes it much more acceptable. So that's the first kind of fun. It's ridiculous and it's silly. The second kind of fun is the kind of fun I usually don't like. It's basically Schadenfreude. In other words, fun at the expense of another. We get to see the characters basically completely mocking and making fun of the Doctor. And for a while there, I was a little hurt by that. In fact, I have a note right here that says privacy, underlined. They know that these are the Doctor's fantasies. And rather than having some decorum, rather than saying, maybe we should speak privately, rather than trying to describe these incidents, they just flat out say, hey, come on board, let's all watch the Doctor's delusions. And so that is kind of the making fun, mockery, ha-ha, look at the freak kind of fun. Now, I don't like that personally, but I'll at least acknowledge it because, let's be honest, Star Trek has done the ha-ha, look at the freak kind of fun a lot. It is probably the single most common form of humor that all of Star Trek employs across all of Star Trek. All the movies, all the shows. It's very common. Look at that, look at the freak, and point and laugh. The thing that makes that okay, though, right towards the end, Janeway, the real Janeway, is about to leave, and the Doctor is talking to fake Janeway and says, I'm very happy for this opportunity to expand my programming, to expand my my knowledge, my experience, my skills, because all I wanted to do was help the people I love. And there's this sincerity in the way he says that. And the camera just lingers on Mulgrew, the real Captain Janeway, for a moment. As you can see, that just hits her as she realizes the sincerity of what's going on. And that's the moment when it stops becoming mockery. And that's why I give it a pass. Up until that, it was like, oh my god, this is silly. Wait, he what? And then there's this a wonderfully human scene shortly thereafter where Janeway comes in and says, how are you doing? You know, I'm concerned about you. I'm worried about you. We've taken you for granted. We haven't thought of you as well as we should. There's a scene where she is in private, and then Chakotay walks in, where she's actually looking into the possibilities and the realities of making his wish to expand himself come true. I like that. And that brings us to the third kind of fun, the fulfillment fun. We see the Doctor go up on stage and, oh my god, it's so human, I just wanted to give him a hug. He was so amazingly awkward, so wonderfully nervous. He acted just like I'm sure every other ensign, every other lieutenant, every other character out there in Starfleet acted the first time they had to actually get up and actually get on that chair. It was just, oh god, oh god, oh god. Except most of those people had years of training to back them up. The Doctor had nothing. He acted like a guy who is always, let's be honest with ourselves, he acted like a Star Trek fan probably would. No, let's be honest with ourselves. Just let's legit embrace this, okay? A lot of us out there, and yeah, I'm one of them, would love to be a captain of a starship in Starfleet. Admit it. Admit it. There's no shame in it. But you know that if all of a sudden, in a crisis situation no less, we were suddenly told, take the bridge, we'd be like, ugh! There would be that nervousness. There would be that tension. And he portrays it brilliantly. I love Robert Picardo. He's an amazing actor. So he sits down there and he takes the bridge. But this is why I call this the third type of fun. Because he gets up there. He is creative. He is a creative individual. He is an imaginative individual. He realizes he has an out. Activate the photonic cannon. You know. It's a great scene. And then at the end of the episode closes with them genuinely celebrating the Doctor because he actually accomplished something by pushing beyond his boundaries. He did it. And I love that. This is a great episode. I don't actually have much other thoughts to share here. So I've kind of just skipped ahead through the episode in those three big points, but that's why I wanted to hit that first, because that's the most powerful part of the episode for me. The fun, and then the fun. Rewinding a bit, I like the fact that he's been having these daydreams. I actually wonder how often he has been having thoughts like these prior to the rewriting of his program, prior to the hierarchy messing with him. As we'll find out in the future, like I said, this is basically his new character arc, the Doctor feeling underappreciated. I feel like there's other episodes where it's better to talk about that in, so I'm going to kind of leave that topic for the side for now. But for me, it's extremely logical that the Doctor would feel so underappreciated and so undervalued, based on everything that's happened up to this point in time. However, I do have to say that his formal grievance, where he's like, you know, his rights of sentience are not accepted and blah, 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 was a complete over-exaggeration. I really do. I also like how Janeway shuts him down, but then says, tries to meet him halfway. I like that because that does show character growth. It shows that this is not the Doctor from season 2, that this is not the Janeway from season 1, that these two people have actually been interacting with each other for a while, and at this point in time, there is a degree of trust and respect and tolerance and understanding between the two. By now, it's grown, it's there, and so they acknowledge that, and I like that. There's this wonderful quote, too. I mentioned about the lack of respect thing. Tom says, he's the chief medical officer. Is it our fault that's not enough for him? If you don't understand the full significance of that, being CMO on a starship is a pretty damn big deal. It is basically... It's a different branch, but you might as well be the first officer. You can override the captain under the right circumstances. You have a tremendous amount of authority, a tremendous amount of respect, and a tremendous amount of responsibility. Some people would argue the CMO is second only to the quartermaster on a ship, and I'm not sure they have such a thing in Starfleet, so that would basically just make them right behind the captain. And yet that's not enough for the Doctor. But again, I want to talk a little bit more about that in a future episode. I like the hierarchy a lot. I find myself wondering, just idly, if the hierarchy that they keep referring to, the thing where they keep sending the orders to and whatnot, is actually a group of people or not. I know what you're thinking. Well, that's weird. It sounds like they're just a bunch of bureaucrats. And they are. They're like bureaucratic pirates. It's great. I love the concept. Similar to how the Doctor is wonderfully human, I like the aliens, the hierarchy in this one. They are wonderfully human. There's this great scene where it's like, do you have a problem? And the guy's like, no. And they're just, oh God, what am I going to do? They're also... They're non-threatening while still being a threat, which is a very, very difficult combination to pull off. So props to the episode and the set designers and the makeup designers, and most importantly the actors and director, for actually pulling that performance out of them. It's really well done. But I do wonder about if the hierarchy, the thing they keep consulting, is a bureaucracy, if it is some kind of council. And the reason why I wonder that is because, let me just run you through this. Okay, so I'm going to take the little thing here, and maybe about 5 seconds pass at the outside. Let me just count that out for you. You can see that's actually a fairly long time when nothing's happening. So it's understandable why they don't take that long from a television writing perspective. But from a lore perspective, I found, how do you make a decision amongst a bureaucracy in 5 seconds with information that's been programmed into a data card? I think the hierarchy is a computer. I'll just get straight to it. I think it's a computing, like an algorithm that they just consult every now and again that determines what is acceptable and what is not. And there's so many possibilities of what you could do with that as a culture. It's another one of those insights into a Delta species culture that they never actually did anything with. I know they're in STO, but you know what I mean. It's like the Voth. The Voth were so interesting as a culture. And there's other races that I don't even remember their freaking names right now that were so interesting as cultures that literally just get a little bloop, peek into them, and then we're gone. I really wonder about a species of pirates who preys on other ships within an area from a very cautious, nervous, we got to be careful about ourselves kind of a perspective, and has a computer program whose only purpose is to analyze probability, Like, I like that idea. And they have gotten to the point where they basically treat the hierarchy, the probability matrix, as their leader. We won't do anything unless we have a high probability of success, that kind of idea. I like that, because the hierarchy themselves look very physically unintimidating as well. This is something I've talked about a few times. Believe it or not, over in the WoW lore run, we actually discussed this topic at length. The idea here is the more physical benefits you have, the less likely your society is to develop extreme technological advancement. I was using this in WoW to explain why the Tauren were so much less advanced than the humans or the dwarves or the gnomes, up until technology being introduced to them. Once the Taurens were introduced to technology, they took to it well, because they are smart. But they never had to advance it on their own because, and this is the key thing, technology doesn't exist for its own sake. Technology happens because you have a need, because you have a vacuum that desires to be filled within your society, within your culture, within your people. Ergo, it's one of the reasons why the gray aliens thing has endured in popular culture for years now. Because the whole point behind that, the original point behind that, is they're weak, spindly, frail little creatures who can barely function, and so have developed very advanced technologies to compensate for their flaws. I talked just last episode about the Klingons and how their technological advancement, well, their advancement in several ways, was stunted because they themselves are so strong. They can endure so much. They had less need for that kind of advancement. And yet, we see in the hierarchy the exact opposite. The idea of these fairly freak, fairly unassuming creatures who don't really have the ability to just walk up and go, rah, you know. And so they need all this advanced technology up to and including my theoretical algorithm, the hierarchy itself, which is what actually determines what is considered safe for them. After all, any loss would be considered significant in such a relatively frail and weak culture. And all of this I pulled from one episode. Give me more! There's a scene that I just died laughing. Oh my god. There's a scene where there's this smooth jazz. Okay, whoops, hang on. There's this just smooth jazz that's playing over what is otherwise a completely ordinary... it's like they spliced two scenes together. A completely ordinary meeting room meeting. You know, it's just, and then we need to land here and get the 15 deposits of Keldasite and blah, blah, it's boring, right? And yet, there's this undercurrent as several of the female characters are jockeying for the Doctor's attention. And then there's this jazz number which plays, and again, this is going back to that first type of fun. This was awesome. It was just, oh my god, it was so utterly, unashamedly ridiculous. And they embraced it. And then there's and Seven's like, resist, you must resist. It's great, but the jazz really sold it. Oh my god, I was so happy they were willing to take that extra step and really embrace the silliness of the first third of the episode. And then it keeps being silly, like they're all right. Oh my god, we've detected the Borg. And now we're being assimilated. Oh my god, because the Borg can assimilate us through our view screen now. Actually, here's a little bit of horror for you. Did you know that in STO and several other ancillary works, never actually discussed in the show, the Borg actually do have the ability to assimilate through the air? You know, aerosol nanomachines, basically. Yeah, they assimilate an entire planet a few times in works that are not actually the show. And that's usually how they do it. It's actually really terrifying. Moving on. And then I need like a prop. I need a prop. So of course he's got the hypospray, and of course in almost all his daydreams he just leans on this hypospray. This is like his weapon. Well, when he becomes the command and the 4 pips shows up, then he dual wields hyposprays. And once again, this is just such a wonderful fan fiction-y kind of thing. That now that I have 2 of them, I am better. I love that. I'm not judging. I have a character who tri-wields in one of my settings. He keeps one juggled in the air at all times while he strikes and then tosses and grabs and strikes and tosses. So, because he's not strong enough to actually hold them all at the same time. And then there's these great section. I want to know, genuinely, how many of you missed this? Because I did until my second most recent viewing, the one before this. When the warp core breach is happening, the computer, Majel Barrett, says, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, warp core breach in a lot sooner than you think. And then it's like, oh my god, what do I do? What do I do? And then Harry's like, we got to do this. And then Majel, the computer says, last chance to be a hero, Doctor. Get going. How many of you noticed that? Legit. Because I didn't the first time I saw this. So then there's the Mockery section. There's my note about privacy and how they completely violate it. I kind of already talked about that. I really hate the fact that they just flat out invade his privacy. I'm sorry, he's still a person. Malfunctioning or no, we don't just barge into someone's room and invade their privacy because they happen to be having a seizure fit, do they? Do we? Or because they're having spasms or something like that? No. We do have some respect for the individual, but no, whatever. Whatever, I've already made my point there. Then there's that great line, which I love. I also like how the crew doesn't disbelieve him for too long at the end. It's a bit of lazy writing and something I'm admittedly tired of, mostly from the 80s and 90s, where the Cassandra truth thing, someone says, oh my god, it's this, oh, it was a lie. But wait, it's for real this time. Or something along those lines, and then disbelief, and then things go badly. I liked the fact that the Doctor's like, oh my god, we're under attack. No, we're under attack. Here, I can prove it. Okay, we'll look at it. Oh, you're telling the truth. I liked the fact that they only sat on that point for just long enough to show that they obviously didn't believe him at first. Immediately let him prove himself, and immediately moved on from that as if it was a real issue. No sitting on the artificial drama of nah. I hate that. I hate artificial drama in general. I mentioned the nervousness, which is great. I mentioned the fact that he's a good improv, which is great. Did you know the command hologram is actually canon? It'll actually be showing up in a future episode. Just the one that I can think of off the top of my head, but it is a thing in the future. Cool touch, huh? Overall, this is a really fun episode. I really like this episode, and I once again urge you to watch it with me if you aren't already. It's great fun. Hopefully, we'll have as much fun with the next episode. What's the next one? Where's my calendar? My calendar's way over there. I don't even know what the next episode is, so I guess I'll find out in a week. See you next time, guys.